My fellow Americans, it is time to take our freedom back.
Hey.
Here we are.
How's it going, guys?
Good morning.
We've got somebody that's prepared right here.
That's right.
We've bought some documents with us. That's hard, actual raw data, not quite like the fallacious stuff that Steffi Bridgett is putting out with her 92% conviction rate, which is not accurate at all.
A little foofy.
It's foofy. It's spoofy. It's I mean, in my opinion, it's completely dishonest. It's intellectually disingenuous. It's designed to mislead the average voter. So she knows what she's doing. She plays the psychology game, and that's basically a piece for all the folks who just want to drink Kool-Aid and be warm and fuzzy and don't want to do their own research.
So today we got a special guest. His name's Shon Northam.
I'm super special.
He is a local criminal defense attorney.
We are, actually.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Going, just a little bit more depth than what I can about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys having me on. I really think it's important to get this information out to the voters. I don't know how many people want to take the time to actually do their own research. The information is all out there, and I was, being facetious somewhat, not really, about Stephanie's numbers that she released, that they're not accurate, right? It's just it's like she has a social media person. She's doing this Hollywood fluff stuff. But that's, as I keep saying throughout every time I get to talk about this and being here for a while, if you pull the curtains back, you look through the smoke and mirrors, it's the Wizard of Oz. And that's the game she's running on Shasta County voters, right?
So you're doing that by your history, though. You spent time.
I have spent
Background real quick.
Absolutely. Okay, so I've been up here for about 11 years. I moved back here in 2010, kind of getting out of Sacramento. So I've been a local criminal defense attorney here for roughly 11 years. I think 2012, 2013 was my first sort of criminal cases up here, so maybe 9-ish years. Before that, so getting back to the day, so I went to law school down in San Diego, and as an intern down there, I was able to clerk and be an intern in what's called the Judge Unit, which is an acronym for Jurisdictions Unified for Drug and Gang Enforcement. And at the time, it was a specialized unit that did basically just drug and gang cases in a juvenile setting. And I was blessed to have a supervisor who gave me a pager. There was 13 juvenile departments in San Diego. So imagine that. It's a fairly big county in California. And she said, okay, you've got 10 cases on calendar, read through the files. Here's your pager, go to court. And so she just let me sink or swim. And, there was a few bumps in the road, but for the most part, Samantha just turned me loose. And so I would get paged to a court, and I was there full time for 3 months. So I did, I think, roughly 50 appearances a week.
Wow.
And then, it's funny because I don't know how much time we have, but there's a funny story about Santa Clara. I interviewed them to be a DA, and it was a panel interview, so there's like 10 people in the room around this horseshoe, and they called me back, and I did basically a closing argument for them on a mock rape case. But they called me back and said, hey, we're pretty sure you lied on your resume. In fact, we know you lied on your resume, but change it, come back because we really like you. And I'm like, well, I didn't lie though. And I'm like, no. There's no way you could have made 300 court appearances in 3 months. And I said, well, I was doing on average 50 appearances a week, between 10 to 15 a day. And that's a conservative estimate. So anyway, my first gig out of law school, I want to back up a little bit. So when it came time for a post-bar clerkship, so you're going to graduate from law school, you're going to take the bar, and then you're going to wait for your bar results. That's how it used to be pre-COVID. And so in that interim, that span, I went to work for the San Diego DA's office in their gang unit. So you get hired, you're sitting around, and I think it's funny because I don't ever sort of view myself as a smart person, but you're sitting around with this group of 13 people from Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Berkeley, all these top schools across the nation, and I'm over here, this little podunk Cal Western in San Diego, who's known to crank out good trial lawyers, but not, we're not the academia of law, right? And I'm just going like, how the hell did this happen? And then I get like the best gig of all of us. I get to be in their gang unit, and being in that gang unit, they had me working on homicides right away. And toward the end of my clerkship, they just started giving me my own cases to handle. Said, here you go take this. And it was mellow stuff, just possession of weapons, pretty de minimis stuff. But in terms of being a newbie out of law school, waiting for your bar results, and now you're handling felony cases and working on homicides, I got pretty spoiled. And so when it came time for my first gig, I was a little bit in my ego and said, I'm not going to some normal DA's office and do traffic and then misdemeanors and then felonies and work my way up. I've already done felonies. So Greg Cohen, who was the DA at the time of Tama County, said, hey, we'll bring you up here. We'll get you going. You can get our gang program off the ground. We'll give you felonies. And so I only had 2 questions. Is one, do I get a badge? And he said, yeah. He goes, but then he cut short the other one, you're not going to get a gun. And I'm like, all right. Well, so I took the gun. So I did spend 10 months in Tama County. In fact, I did the first gang case up there. Dave Kane, who's running for sheriff down there, I qualified him as the very first gang expert in Tama County. I was the head of the meth task force. And by that, I mean, I signed off on all search warrants. We put CIs in apartments. We ran operations. I would sit in on interviews with defendants, make them offers before they had invoked their constitutional rights. It was all above board, but I was pretty heavy into like doing stuff, being basically fresh out of law school. But that's sort of, I had an unorthodox career, and it just kind of went from there. Then I didn't get promoted financially the way I should have, Greg Cohen. So then I lateral in Sacramento, and they started off doing felony hearings, and then sent me down to misdemeanors. And when they sent me to misdemeanors, there was an email that went out to 20 attorneys from the supervisor saying, hey, Shon has prior felony jury trial experience, which I did. So take your 5 worst cases and give them to him. So they created a caseload for me, a specialized caseload that was all the crap. And I just went to trial. And I mean, I think I got a conviction my very first misdemeanor case, and then rattled off like 8 acquittals. I mean, I was just getting beaten up. But there were cases where it was like battery on a cop, assault on an officer, where the DA's office wouldn't dismiss it just for fear of civil suit down the road, and they were kind of protecting the guys. And so I'm like, screw it, I'll go to trial. Let's just go to trial. And then after that, I think I went out to a specialized juvenile unit where I was designated the serious offender prosecutor, and half my caseload was sex assaults and half my caseload was gang cases. And I think that I did 4 or 5 high-profile rape cases. There was a number of kids that went to CYA under my watch, and we're talking kids that raped a girl in the gymnasium of Laguna Creek High School. There was, I think I sent a total of 4 of them off to CYA. Did a couple big high-profile arson cases. So I did a bunch of media cases, a bunch of arson cases. Had a case where a 14-year-old kid was babysitting these 2 little girls, 7 and 5-year-old, and did stuff to them. And so we did that trial. And, both those little girls hit the wall and couldn't testify, and we had to take a break, and you talk to them. And it was, super, super emotionally heavy stuff. And so after SAC, I spent, some time down there doing a bunch of stuff. And then I never lost a felony jury trial down there. I had 3 or 4 years, just never lost. It's just preparation, just knowing your case. You know when to do it, you know when to take it to trial, which is, we'll get to these stats in a second, but that's why I'm so, just personally pissed off and annoyed with how this criminal justice system is here in Shasta County. It's broken. It's a debacle. I don't know what's going on with Stephanie Bridgett and her office, how they have just sort of circled the wagons and are in denial about their numbers and what's going on. But that office is a laughing stock in the courthouse. I mean,
well, and for me, Stephanie has a real hard time recognizing good guys and bad guys sometimes. Like she'll take up a case, decline to file on really serious ones, and then take up a case like Carlos's, or like the first time I met you, I think you were representing Jason Wicks.
Yeah, down there on that case.
That was a total mutual combat deal. I watched the video and everything, and she throws 7 felonies on this dude just because he's part of the Cottonwood Community Watch.
Well,
no way.
No. And so here's the thing about that case too, Woody, is that the whole time, so I represented Jason, and I can't remember, I think his son's name was Jeff. And then it was
Carolyn Barlow.
Carolyn, yeah.
70-year-old lady driving van. They tried to get 4 felonies on her.
And so the whole time that this case is going on, for about 1.5 to 2 years before we finally went to trial, I kept advocating, hey guys, hey Mr. Prosecutor, look, dismiss on the son. My guy will plead a felony because there's not only part of the video, which was maybe a little bit over the top, and dismiss on Barlow because that's what this case is worth, right? Like this is that case. No, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. So we spent 2 years. We get to trial, and what do you think happens at trial?
Carolyn and Jeff get thrown
Yeah,
out.
exactly. Jeff was an outright acquittal. Carolyn, I think, had some sort of a misdemeanor. And then Jason was convicted of multiple felonies. But all that money, all that taxpayer dollars was spent. Nobody went to prison. They didn't get the convictions on the people they wanted. And all along,
And Jason had been willing to take that.
Dude,
he said right from the
100%.
beginning, he goes, "Hey, I'll take the felony. You just let them go. They didn't do anything, But no, she wanted to make an example. In fact, part of the terms of their probation are they can't come to the Cottonwood Barbershop. That's literally part of their terms.
How long ago was that?
That was 3 or 4 years ago, I think. I think 3 years ago.
And how long
Yeah,
has Stephanie been in there?
She's been in office about 5 years. So she took over 1/1/17. Steve Carlton, rest in peace, exited in end of 16. And so we'll kind of get into those numbers because, or maybe we can get into them right now. So it's Stephanie did this press release, and God bless there was one gent, maybe two gents last week at the Board of Supervisors meeting that got up there and talked about what a great person Stephanie is, and she's protecting this community. And I'm just shaking my head going like, dude, how can you be so ignorant? Are you willfully ignorant? Are you just naive? I mean, I don't, it'll sound terrible. Are you just dumb? Are you an idiot? And I don't know, but I wanted to talk to the guy and go like, just explain to me your psychology right now. Because you're spouting off a 92% conviction rate. Where did those numbers come from? And I've made a joke about this at the Board of Supervisors going, it's like asking the fox guarding the hen house. The farmer walks up and says, hey, Mr. Fox, how are the chickens in there? We got 100%? Oh yeah, boss, everything's good. Cool. Nothing to see here, move along. And then that's it.
Yeah.
But the farmer never opens up the door to look at the chickens, go, crap. He's eating 100% of them, right?
Yeah.
So this new program that Stephanie has, the e-prosecutor, is, again, it's smoke and mirrors. The way it works is every county has a superior court. That superior court is required to compile statistics on felonies filed, misdemeanors filed, infractions, non-criminal infractions, non-criminal misdemeanors. And then all those stats get compiled, sent over to the Judicial Council of California, which is required to compile basically a report every year on this is how our counties are doing. So what I've done is I went to the Judicial Council and I got the raw data for all of the numbers, right?
For Shasta County.
For Shasta County.
Yeah.
And I just look at somebody spouting off to the Board of Supervisors going, they have a 92% conviction rate, and that press release, and go, yeah, so that's your own program. And then B, one thing that we always say in criminal laws, consider the source. So what motive, what agenda does Stephanie Bridgett have to release some fluffy numbers that aren't accurate? Job security, right? Hey, I don't know. It's a pretty beefy paycheck, whatever it is. I don't actually know. But there's an incentive for Stephanie to fluff her numbers, right? Because she needs to get reelected. There's a disincentive for her to tell the truth, because if she does, she's going to be exposed. And that's what I've been talking about all along, is exposing this DA's office, their ethics, their trial stats, and how they conduct business, right? So if you look at, do we have the FOIA stats by chance?
Well, I think she's screwed either way, because she can tell the truth or she can lie about it, but she's going to get called on it because people are paying attention now, So I think it's a double-edged sword.
Well, that's a key thing for me. I'm like, well, how would I interpret DA numbers? I don't know where. It's not my expertise.
No,
so you need somebody with a background to be able to,
Actually
bring
tell.
it down to my level.
Right.
What am I looking at here?
Public safety.
Right.
Your safety,
Right.
Your kids' safety, your family's safety, the safety of the community at large. Because what Steffi's doing is she's taking stats, and I'm sure they're legit stats, but what she's doing is she's doctoring those numbers. That's a good word. It's an accurate number. Doctoring those numbers where it spikes her conviction rate.
Okay.
So, for example, do you feel safer, Lonnie, that she got 100 out of 100 red light tickets? Does that make your family safer in the community? Probably not. Maybe driving at that intersection, right? But I don't think so. Driving on a suspended license or no insurance. Does that make you safer? Not really. What makes a community safer? When you go after felons, right? When you go after people who have violent backgrounds, that are committing crimes, that are engaging in drug activity, handling guns.
Getting caught with guns.
Getting caught with guns, right? And I'm not talking about some dude. I mean, I have a case right now where his prior felony conviction was from 12 years ago. I think he wrote a bad check. There we go. Great freaking job, guys. Good job. And they want to send him to prison. So we're going to trial because he's never been to prison. He's never had a felony conviction since that bad check case or whatever it was. And it was, he didn't know it was an accident. He shouldn't have had the gun in the vehicle. But point being, the offer from Nolan Weber, Zapata favorite, is prison. And I look at this newbie, this young lawyer going like, dude, you don't know what you're doing. You're young. This is not a prison case. We're going to go to trial. I'm probably going to kick your ass. But aside from that, even if I lose, he's not going to prison. So why are we going to go spend thousands and thousands and thousands of taxpayer dollars when you could just get the conviction and move on, right? So that's where discretion comes in. Right. But talking about felonies, so if you look at these numbers I got up here, gents. So Stephanie Bridgett, I'm going to walk over to so if you look at the left column, it's 16, 17. So the way it works is we have fiscal years. So from June 1st to June 1st.
Right.
So 1670 is half Steve Carlton, half Stephanie Bridgett. You go down, there were 47 felony cases assigned out for jury trial in 2016-17. Of those 33, the reason there's an asterisk is that everywhere there's an asterisk, there was a jury trial on what's called a civil commitment. So basically you got like a sexually violent predator, and we do a trial to see if he should be committed longer, right? So you sort of just reduce it by one. But if you take 33 convictions out of 47 trials, it's 70% conviction rate. It should be higher because look at what's happened. You get 2 hung juries, 4 straight up acquittals, 5 mistrials, and 2 pleas. What that shows me, having spent 22 years or whatever it is, I don't know, 20, Jesus Christ, I don't know how long I've been doing this, 20-something years.
Decades.
Yeah, decades. I've probably done 100 jury trials. I've probably handled, honestly, over 5,000 felony cases. I mean, it sounds weird to talk about myself, but I don't like it. But, I've got a lot of experience. And you've got 2 hung juries, you got 4 acquittals. It happens, 5 mistrials. 5 mistrials is something's going awry, typically with the prosecution doing something they shouldn't be doing, and the judge has to declare a mistrial. But if you look at those other numbers, what you're seeing is people taking cases to trial that should never go to trial, right? Sometimes, out of 100% of cases, maybe 4 to 6% of those cases should never go to trial. And those, you're talking like guys who have a super bad background, maybe the case is a little weak, but you need to take a run at the guy. Or murder trials where somebody committed a murder, and the offer is, well, plead to 25 to life. Well, that's what I'm going to get if I get convicted. Why wouldn't I go to trial, right?
Look, every year
There you go.
it gets worse.
So here's what's interesting,
Look
Woody.
at the acquittals, 11 and 15 acquittals in 18, 19, 19, 20. That's crazy.
It's crazy. And if you look at this, what you're going to see is, and this is what Stephanie's not talking about, the grand jury that investigated her, or whatever it was that they posted on their website for low morale, ultimately concluded, oh, you're doing a great job. You guys are just overworked. They're overworked because they're filing cases that shouldn't be filed. Ergo Zapata. They don't file cases they should file. How about the West Valley Conwood sexual assault case that Stephanie Bridgett's office refused to file? That went before the school board. The sex assault was documented, it happened, and her office didn't touch that. Yet she claims on her flyer on her website, we're going to protect children. Sit down and explain to me without being emotional and crying about how hard you work. How are you protecting kids when you didn't file that case?
Right.
Just let's have an honest conversation. Don't go before the board of supervisors and whine. We all work really hard. Everyone works hard. Everyone busts their ass for their family, right? Unless you're born independently wealthy, which was not my stock in life. But yeah, if you look at 17, 18, when it's now Steffi's got full control of her office, right? Now look at the numbers. Now Steffi's also doing hiring. So keep that little nugget in mind because you drop down 68%. Okay, 2% drop off. All right. Now in year 2.5. So 1 full year, 2 full years under her belt. Her office is her office. Those are her hires. Those are her trainees. What is she getting? 55%. You got your ass kicked 11 times, right? 4 mistrials, 1 case dismissed, 3 hung juries. It's a shit show. Sorry for cursing, but I do that a lot. But then you start thinking about 17 people left her office in 5 years. Now let's look at the next few years, guys. So in 1920, she dropped 11%. Is that right? 9%?
9%.
Down to 40.
In 2020? No, I'm just joking.
You're confusing me, John. Those 2 accounting degrees I got in undergrad, I don't know what happened to them, man. I can't crunch numbers anymore. I drink the beans instead of count the beans. But 15 acquittals, dude. Are you kidding me?
That's unbelievable.
So what does that show for you? For people that you're shocked by 15 acquittals.
I'm absolutely horrified by 15 acquittals. Because
so what does that show for you? What does that illustrate?
It means violent felons and felons are back on the street. So it's public safety is not happening under Stephanie Bridgett's watch. If you look at these numbers, since Steve Carlton, Shasta County is more dangerous because of Stephanie Bridgett. And yet God bless her lawyers, come to board of supervisors. She's a great leader. In what capacity exactly?
Right.
Are you guys doing, Avon parties? I don't know. Tupperware? I don't know. Maybe
Right.
she's a great leader at bocce ball. Who knows? But in terms of running an office, which is, it's irritating to me, this shtick that the DA's office and the lawyers are putting on Eric Jensen. He's not experienced. You need to be, and Eamon Fitzgerald was at the Board of Supervisors meeting the other day saying, I've been a lawyer for 20 plus years, in a southern drawl, which is really accented for the Board of Supervisors because he doesn't normally talk like that. Not to that
He learned that from Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, right? He's that old southern drawl. That dog don't hunt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Eamon Fitzgerald's dog doesn't hunt because I will tell you that, and Eamon does a lot of the filings, so we get cases that are like, why did you file this case, dude? You're never going to prove this case in a million years. And I don't know how much time I have, but I got to tell a quick Fitzgerald story because he's up there bragging about what a great leader Stephanie Bridgett is. So in California, if you get stopped for a misdemeanor and you don't want to sign the ticket, you have an absolute right under the penal code to go before a magistrate. It's in our laws, right? So one of the Cal Fire guys, God bless him, stopped my client for riding a bicycle through a stop sign, which is technically a moving violation. The amount of resources that got put in that call, that's a whole nother topic. But whatever, Cal Fire, some of those guys are sworn law enforcement. So he's out making a traffic stop on a bicycle, which, whatever. I'm aggravated about that. But So my client says, I'm not signing a damn ticket. Take me before a magistrate. So now Cal Fire calls up a few more Cal Fire guys. Now more cops arrive on scene because now my client's, quote, resisting arrest. He's insisting on his constitutional right, his right under the penal code, to be taken before a magistrate. So Cal Fire guy apparently doesn't understand the penal code, arrests my client for resisting arrest because my client demanded to be taken before a magistrate. Fitzgerald gets that case, and what do you think Fitzgerald filed? Instead of knowing the law on that, Fitzgerald files a PC 140, a misdemeanor. So my client's currently in failure to appear status, but at some point, that case is going to go to trial because this office doesn't dismiss 148s. And why would I ever plead my client to a charge where he's insisting on his right on the penal code? So these guys are going to talk about what a great leader Stephanie is. And if you just pull the data, this data came from Shasta County Superior Court. I did a FOIA request to the CEO, and she sent this to me. So this is just the raw data from the stats they compiled. And you talk about, low morale because they're overworked. Right. You had 17 lawyers leave in 5 years, and look at their numbers. Ultimately, last year,
well, these numbers right here, 70% and 68% in trial conviction rates, and you go down there to 45% and 38%. That pretty much tells the whole story.
So what would be the way to defend this besides that she's liked in her office for whatever reason, because she hired him and she can create her own culture.
Yeah,
you can be liked.
Right.
So what's the argument that says we should be voting for Stephanie Bridgett? After looking at this, I see no good reason at this point. We need
just
to see
on
a
sheer
change.
numbers.
Lonnie, there's absolutely, if you look at the numbers and you're not having an emotional response or deep psychological reaction to the leadership, right?
Okay.
There is no legitimate reason why anyone should ever vote for Stephanie Bridgett. Would you, if you let's take you run a business, right? Or I think the best analogy is sports analogy. Let's say you got a little league team that wins 45% of the games. All right, it's the little dudes, right? Little girls. Okay, cool. But if you're running a business for profit, if you're running a team and the goal is to win a championship, are you ever going to bring back a coach who gets you a 45% win rate?
What should that number be?
So that
in
number
a healthy
should be,
office.
So that number should be right around 90% conviction rate.
That's
between
what I
80 and 90%. And what that translates into, again, is public safety. You are losing cases where you should be winning those cases because you should be spending the time analyzing what do we have, right? There's that great line from Training Day. It's not what you think you know, it's what you can prove. Well, this data, one shows they don't know what they're doing, and they can't prove it either. They can't prove anything. So
it seems like it's a lot of front end. In my world, I would say triaging of what's filed. They're doing a terrible job of saying, let's take on this, that, the other thing. That's one of the main sources of what's going on here. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. And then you get the ego and the narcissism involved.
Right.
Involved in it, right?
Yeah, then you're out of control.
And like, we're not going to dismiss it. Well, then F you, let's go to trial. I do a lot of trial work. My clients have a lot of success. And I love how there's some social media stuff just ripping on me. Yeah, there's a disincentive for me to expose Stephanie and Bridgett from a financial standpoint. Right? I mean, if I want to really blow up my business, I just go keep kicking their ass.
Right.
And I would have all these things about all my trial numbers and how often my clients win. And don't you want a lawyer who's got like one of the best trial winning rates in Shasta County? I mean, I know I'm at the top. But I don't care. To me, I care more about the Constitution and the criminal justice system in Shasta County than my pocketbook, right?
We need to move on a little bit, and
okay.
let's talk about the Brady stuff.
Oh man,
we got to get into that. That's super important.
Yep, we got pressed for time.
Okay, can we pull up the photograph of Stephanie Bridgett from the press conference, please? Okay, so while that's coming up, so what I did was, great.
That's
You
it.
guys are killing it back there, man. Like man. So what's up on the screen right now is from, I believe, a September 14th, 2021 press conference with Stephanie Bridgett talking about the PG&E, the Zog fire, and how she's going after them, right? So I like how it says truth, justice, and protection on her little badge thing on their dice, because that's not accurate either. The gentleman on the far left to Stephanie Bridgett's far right, his name is Ian Frazier. So this team was handpicked by Stephanie Bridgett. The guy to Stephanie Bridgett's immediate right, that is Chief Deputy District Attorney Ben Hanna. So let's talk about Ian Frazier. He's been a prosecutor for 2 years. He's already quickly garnered the reputation as the most unethical prosecutor, or arguably the most unethical prosecutor in Shasta County. He has 3 separate Brady violations. Now, the way Brady works is this. There's a constitutional requirement that the government turn over evidence that is favorable to the defense. Either it impeaches a witness, it would reduce the sentence, or it's outright, it goes to guilt. It's what we call exculpatory. But there's an affirmative obligation. There are at least 10 documented Brady violations that I've got, ethics violations that I've come up with. And let's talk about Ian Frazier. So Ian Frazier has 3 separate violations, as well as 2 recent cases in which he violated a court order. So,
and this is in 2 years of being in Shasta County.
2 years of being in Shasta County. So The irony is, Ian Frazier used to do workers' comp. So the bag on Eric Jensen is, you can't do this job if you've never done a criminal trial. Well, hey, Stephanie Bridgett, you hired a workers' comp lawyer to do criminal jury trials. Wait a second. So when you're ripping on Eric Jensen, and when your lawyers are ripping on Eric Jensen saying, you can't do this job if you don't have criminal experience, to Ian Frazier. Then explain Ian Frazier, Stephanie Bridgett. And it's a bunch of BS that Eamon was talking about, that you have to have criminal experience to be a DA. You don't. You need to be a good leader. You need to be a good manager.
Yeah.
You gotta know how to hire good lawyers.
Yeah.
And then you gotta train lawyers, right? You gotta put a training program in, which is why I love the fact that Eric Jensen has Tom Toller with him. Tom Toller spent 20 plus years being a prosecutor. I don't know how many years in the Shasta County DA's office. I mean, Tom is brilliant. And so it seems to me like when you look at, and there was some meeting where like, well, Tom's only known Eric for 3 months, and how can Tom vouch for Eric? Well, I mean, I gotta say, it's like, you could stick your head up a bull's ass and get a good look at T-bone steak, but would you rather just take the butcher's word for it, right? So I trust Tom's legal intellect. I trust his legal acumen. I trust for Tom to say, hey, I know Eric Jensen's a great lawyer. He's a good lawyer. He's gonna put together a great team. That's what a good leader does, right? Stephanie Bridgett's tried one murder case in like the last 4 or 5 years. That was with me, and that was like shooting fish in a barrel. My client was pretty guilty. So, you don't need to do jury trials. And you look at Ian Frazier, who's out of workers' comp. What has that guy done? He's made a complete mockery of the U.S. Constitution. I mean, he violated He violated the Constitution in People v. Justin Joel, 20F 2719. Here's the crazy thing. Ian got information that initially the victim, it kind of came out that the defendant used a knife to carjack this victim. That didn't happen. Turns out the knife actually belonged to the victim. RPD, Random Police Department, knew that. RPD communicated that to Ian Frazier. Ian Frazier had that information, yet still went to court and still tried to argue, that the knife belonged to the defendant, which is pretty freaking
Scummy.
scummy and unethical.
Man.
And he got busted. And even the judge in the opinion, which I have, said, I'm really disappointed or dismayed or the super bothered by the fact that Ian Frazier went after the public defender investigator really hard and was basically saying, hey, that public defender investigator was lying in his report when the victim said, oh no, the knife belonged to me. And Ian tried to portray this investigator as a liar on the stand, knowing the whole time that the knife never belonged to the defendant. And that's as dirty as you get, man. And that's what Ian Frazier does. In People v. Neil Babcock, a misdemeanor case, 19M499, Mr. Frazier withheld the victim's extensive criminal history related to drugs and drug sales because the victim was deceased in a car accident, but Ian buried that stuff. And so what happens when that information came out, case gets shipped to another prosecutor, and then a deal was struck. And rightfully so in that case because it truly was an accident. But again, it's Ian Frazier withholding material that's required on the Constitution. And this DA's office, I just got into it with, well, I'll withhold that story. But
you have 10 different examples of that.
I have 10 different examples. Ian Frazier has 3 alone. So he's got another where they destroyed a body armor vest that Ian was supposed to preserve it for testing. It inadvertently got destroyed. And then Ian's still trying to prove that it was actually body armor, where the defense was, hey, this was a vest I created for paintball or the little Nerf pellet things.
Yeah.
And so
Airsoft.
Yeah, airsoft. Thank you. And in that case, there was a Brady motion that was brought. It was granted by Judge Flynn, and Judge Flynn, as a sanction, excluded any testimony from or in front of the jury from the cop saying it's body armor. I believe that resulted in an acquittal. And so just last week I was in court, and Ian Frazier had been ordered to file a legal document. It's called an information. It was never filed, and the judge kind of looks over to the DA. He's like, yeah, he was ordered to file. It's not filed. And the response was, well, my notes reflect that there was an agreement that we could just use the old legal document to be the new one. And the judge looks over to the DA and says, yeah, that was never the agreement. Mr. Public Defender, was that the agreement? No, Judge, there was never an agreement. So, I have certain ideas about what notes were wrote on that file, but certainly it was misinformation that was written on that file. And then... So
you've brought these to the judge, right? You brought the case. I
had a domestic violence case where 2 weeks ago that got dismissed because there was a whole amount of stuff that got turned over. In fact, Stephanie Bridgett's office is so pissed off that they've now started recusing Judge McKee from hearing cases. She's an incredible jurist. Works really, really hard to come up to speed on cases, to understand them, to read all the briefings. And the DA's office is just papering her. So in other words, the DA's office is precluding her from hearing trials. Here's what's going on with that. They're wasting more taxpayer dollars because right now we only have so many courtrooms available due to COVID. And because they're papering Judge McKee, now we're getting a backlog on cases because that's an open trial court that's just sitting there because the DA's office is having an emotional tantrum that they were called out and exposed. They got their ass kicked, rightfully so, because they were doing some dirty, shady stuff. And as revenge, vindictiveness, it's like we're dealing with like 4th grade, whatever it is. Stephanie Bridgett, under her leadership, is now recusing Judge McKee from hearing trial cases. So now the DA's office is creating a backlog of cases. We're wasting more taxpayer dollars because they're pissed. They got their little feelings hurt because they're being unethical. They got exposed. And in my brief, I listed a bunch of these Brady cases, and they tried to relitigate it. They tried to have that brief sealed. They tried to do all this tactical stuff because they didn't want that information out there. But it's out there, and I just wish that the voters of Shasta County would take the time to go do your own independent research. Don't be dumb, man. I mean, we're supposed to be in a conservative county, right? Aren't we supposed to be a little smarter than the folks in Los Angeles, the folks in San Francisco, New York?
Absolutely.
All the major cities?
I'm surprised that a DA can do that to a judge. I mean...
Well,
it's crazy.
It is, but at the same time, there's some certain personality conflicts that occur. And so it's written in the Code of Civil Procedure that you can, if you feel like a judge is biased against you, you can what we call paper them, right? But how do you make the argument that this judge is biased against my office because the judge is upholding the Constitution with a straight face?
That's pretty tough.
I mean,
Right. It would have to be something odd, not a direct violation of Constitution.
no, absolutely. And there's I mean, I've had some personality conflicts with some judges over the years throughout the number of counties that I've worked in, and sometimes I'll drop paper on them if I think that they're really gonna affect how I'm gonna handle my case. Yeah, I'll drop paper on them. But that is a personality conflict. That is not, hey, this judge upheld the Constitution and now we're pissed off, so now we're going to create a further backlog of trial cases in Shasta County. Right?
And so for me, I don't know how many Brady violations would be acceptable for a county or a DA's office.
Zero?
Zero would be good.
Zero.
So let's say in a how many year period? You said you have 10 there?
10 in the last 4 years under Stephanie's watch.
Okay, and if we were to take other counties,
So what I can tell
what
you
would
is
you see?
I know a cop that has a Brady, and it pretty much renders you ineffective
yeah, if you're on the Brady list, you really can't be a witness.
because you go to court. Like if I'm a cop that arrests you and I have a Brady,
Right.
the first thing Sean's going to do as your attorney is remind the jury, hey,
Well,
this guy's got a Brady.
And
He's a liar.
I'm going at this at the angle of arguing that we just had some mishaps.
So and that does happen. I will tell you that.
Because that's going to be the argument.
It is. No. Like
Well, he's new. Well, what's the norm? What is a reasonable expectation
Well,
for
the
a DA's
prosecutor
office?
on Jacob Pauling, Courtney Hagee, has been out here for about 2 years from Virginia, and
Okay.
the Judge McKee, was putting a thumb down, going, "Tell me why you didn't turn this over. Why didn't you do this step?"
Right.
And so I was, well, Judge, to be perfectly honest, which always sort of begs the next part of the answer, right? When somebody says that, but to be perfectly honest, I'm still new here. Okay.
What about saving trees? Is that the same?
Yes.
I was
Yes,
there,
you
dude.
were there, dude. You watched it, John. You watched it.
She said, I thought I could. First of all, at one point she said that she was new, and then she got hammered on it again. Like, answer the freaking question. And she says, "Well, I thought I'd save some trees, and it wasn't important."
Right. So there was an email that Judge McKee was asking Courtney about, Ms. Hagee about, and saying, "Hey, well, where's this email?" Because Courtney's like, "Well, I sent him an email a long time ago," which is even more concerning because if you sent the email a long time ago, then you had a heads up that you should have turned that shit over, right? And the response is, and I just got into it with a judge last week. Well, and the judge responses, because I was bringing up Brady, and I'm done. I'm over being patient. I'm tired of the excuses. You have a freaking affirmative obligation on the Constitution. Just deal the cards, man. Deal the cards. Let's see where they fall. Let's be transparent. Let's give everybody what they need, and let's have a fair, like Stephanie's got something on her, fair, ethical, and honest prosecutions. You're full of shit. You're not fair, you're unethical, and you're not honest because you're not turning over material that you need for the Constitution, under the Constitution, right? So the judge looks at me and says, "Well, Mr. Northam, you don't need to lecture me about the DA's office and their Brady obligations." And I said, I'm not lecturing you." The judge responds, "Well, they know what their obligation is." And I was like, "One, I'm not lecturing you, but no, they don't. If they did, we wouldn't be 4 years down the road with the same whiny excuse. Judge, we told them about this conviction. They should have went and got it. Yeah, you don't understand the law. Not only do you need to tell me about the conviction, but you need to provide reports underlying the conviction because it's moral turpitude, it's exculpatory, it's Brady, it's material under the U.S. Constitution that you have to provide. I don't have to go ask for anything anymore. And yet here we are 4 years down the road. The same excuses they were using 4 years ago, they're using now. So where's Stephanie Bridgett under her great leadership? Where's her training program? I know Eric Jensen will have a Brady training program. So every newbie lawyer who comes out of office is going to be sat down and watch a video for 2 hours or whatever it is going, when you get stuff, just turn it over.
Yeah.
And so getting back to your question, like, so I was in the Sacramento DA's office for 6 years. I had a Brady issue because I didn't want to turn over a videotape interrogation of the co-defendant because it was a gang case. And I thought once I had released that, then potentially that guy was going to get taken out by his fellow gang members. Under the evidence code, I was asking for a hearing, which I'm entitled to do, on whether or not I had to disclose that. Well, the judge disagreed with me, ordered me to turn it over. I got into a pissing contest with him, and then I got in trouble when I went back across the street, and they're just like, just turn it over. So it happens where stuff.
Hey, we got to wrap this up because the next. Sorry, let's maybe in 1 minute. Let's just. You're on fire, Shon. I wish we could go on for hours with this, dude. I mean, like you are just a freaking. You smell blood in the water, and I love your passion, dude, and breaking this stuff down for your average person.
Well, it's a big deal for you to come out with this stuff. It really is.
Well,
it's a patriotic thing to do. You know,
it is though, and I mean, I'm catching a lot of flack for it. I mean, I've been called Voldemort, a villain. Just social media stuff. I don't really give a shit. I mean, my brother was killed in 2011, and I lost my family, most of my family, because they supported him. I support the prosecution because it's called integrity. You either have it or you don't. You cannot teach integrity. You can't teach character, right? And so Eric Jensen has integrity. He's going to be transparent. And what we're seeing with Stephanie Bridgett is it's just a bunch of nonsense to get reelected to be a career politician. And, if I've got to be Don Quixote or whatever it is, chasing windmills to get this information out there, then that's what God and the universe has called upon me to do. And I don't care.
So these days when you're doing the right thing, it seems like you get character assassinated, and it's actually a badge of honor. I mean, it's kind of...
you might be moving the right direction.
Yeah,
100%, though. It's funny because America's shipped that way, right?
Welcome to the jungle, brother.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Shon, thank you. You're
Thank you,
freaking
guys.
awesome, dude. You're a patriot. You freaking standing up for what's right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. You can find us on share us, please share it. We don't have any funding. We don't we're just doing this. We're not doing this for money, but please, we need some organic growth. Share us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, sometimes YouTube and Facebook, Rumble, most importantly on mountaintopmedia.com, and check out the other great podcasts we have that's under the umbrella of Mountaintop Media, Sovereign Minds, and Jefferson State of Mind. You guys have a great day. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, bless you. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Shon. Appreciate it, man.
For sure.